Good news. 2 weeks in a row, the unsold inventory has stayed level week over week. Normally by this time of year, inventory would be climbing each week, but Americans are buying everything in sight. So if inventory isn't dropping, that's a really good sign. It's Monday, March 22, 2021, and this is your weekly look at the Altos Research data that came in over the weekend for the entire US real estate market. Each week, Altos tracks every home for sale in the US, all the pricing, all the supply and demand, all the changes in pricing, so that you can see the trends in the US housing market before it becomes available through the traditional media channels. And here is what the data is showing right now. The annual price increases, percentage-wise, are really starting to skyrocket. This is the result of crazy multiple offer scenarios that we're seeing everywhere around the country. Remember that buyers now locked their rates in February so that they have even more incentive to get purchase done now before the lowest rates ever expire. In this way, rising mortgage rates actually increases demand for a few months, and we're seeing that now. This week last year was the final week of normalcy before the first of the pandemic lockdown. So we're exactly a year in. And if you look at the red line here, this week last year, the median home price was just over $328,000. Median home prices dipped for only 3 weeks last year before buyers started coming back in force. And it took only 5 weeks until median home prices recovered past the previous highs. The entire real estate correction of the pandemic lasted only 5 weeks. The median home price now is $364,900. It's more than 11% higher than last year at this time, and up 5% from a month ago in the winter. The next few weeks are going to be wild in terms of the year-over-year percentage gains. Keep your eye out for those. The price of new listings, that's the gray-green line here, is flat from last week at $349,900. The new listings price usually peaks end of May. And so we have a couple more months of that peak spring buying season. But last year, this price indicator didn't peak until mid-July, and demand never let up. And you can see how the new listings was more sensitive to the pandemic lockdown with a bigger dip, and how aggressively prices have climbed this spring. So it implies sellers know exactly how good they have it right now, and that 2021 continues to have all signs point to greater than 10% price appreciation year. And it's hard to overstate what that means for American homeowners. Americans gained $1.5 trillion in home equity wealth last year, and they'll gain that again this year. That sure seems to bode well for economic recovery in general. On the inventory front, available inventory is flat for the second week in a row. And I say this with a little sigh of relief. It isn't totally uncommon for inventory to be at the annual trough still through March, but normally the number of homes on the market would be climbing at this point. Since the peak of available inventory was April 3rd of last year, at about 750,000 homes. It's just reassuring that inventory is no longer plummeting each week as it did for 50 consecutive weeks. So fingers crossed that sometime in April, we start to see week over week gains in inventory. We'll keep an eye out for that, and you'll see it here first. Lastly, let's look at one of our favorite leading indicators, percentage of homes with price reductions. So normally mid-March is when we see price reductions ticking up for the first time. The early spring sellers have tested the market, and if their house doesn't move quickly, they cut the price to get it done. This second to third week of March is almost always the first week of the year when the price reductions climb week over week. Last year, we had 1 week of uptick before the lockdown changed everything. And of course, this year is different too. By some of these indications, the market's like running like a month later than usual. So you could imagine that it's April 18th of this year when we finally see price reductions turn up. This is likely to if mortgage rates continue to climb over that time. Price reductions are at a record low at only 16.1% of the country having to take a price cut before they sell. We have so many overbid situations that there is almost no price cuts happening anywhere out there. But if you are a realtor working with potential sellers, the next month is likely going to be the absolute peak. And then the rest of the year will continue, of course, to have strong buyers and prices climbing, but the absolute peak of the demand frenzy may be right now. This is something to keep in mind for your buyers and sellers as they, especially if they're nervous about taking action right now, maybe wanting to know whether they should list right now or if they should wait. Some of the indicators are showing that the absolute peak of buying may be right now. So that's all the data we have for the week. As always, subscribe to the YouTube channel to keep updated with the latest data. If you are a real estate professional and you're working with buyers and sellers right now and you need to communicate what's going on in this market, I recommend you go right now to altosresearch.com and just book a demo with us. We'll show you how you can use the data to really help people in this crazy market. There is a link to Altos Research in the description below. As always, more next week.